Have you ever sat in a room full of people, surrounded by warmth, music, and laughter, yet felt an unbearable, suffocating sense of distance from everyone around you? It is a subtle, heavy feeling, like standing on a cold shore while watching the rest of the world float away on a bright, welcoming ship. You are present in the room, but your heart is somewhere else, guarding itself, constantly on edge. You might find yourself subtly scanning the room, measuring how quickly someone responds to your voice, watching for any slight change in their facial expression, or double-checking if their posture shifted just a few inches away from you when you spoke. It is utterly exhausting to live on high alert, to spend every waking moment quietly measuring the emotional distance between yourself and the people you care about most. If you have ever felt that quiet ache, that persistent, lingering fear that no matter how close someone seems today, they will eventually pack up their warmth and walk away, I want you to take a deep breath and pause right here. You do not have to carry this heavy armor all by yourself right now. Before we walk any further together into this space, I want to invite you to leave an affirmation in the comments below. I am safe, I am worthy, and I am here for myself. Let those simple words settle into your chest. Let them give you permission to drop the weight, even if only for a few moments, as we take these first steps together toward understanding and healing. This quiet weight we carry rarely feels like a sudden panic. More often, it feels like a soft, dull ache that sits deep in the background of our lives. It is the silent dialogue that runs through your mind when someone goes quiet for a few hours. It is the immediate, instinctive leap to assume that their quietness is your fault, that you said something wrong, demanded too much, or simply existed too loudly. You learn to walk on emotional eggshells, trying to be as easy to love as possible, believing that if you never cause trouble, if you are always helpful, always calm, and always understanding, maybe, just maybe, they will stay. But hiding your true self to keep someone close is its own form of invisible exhaustion. You end up holding your breath in your own relationships. You censor your thoughts, hide your sadness, and push down your needs because you are convinced that showing your full, vulnerable truth will make you too much for someone else to handle. You trade genuine connection for safety, choosing the quiet isolation of self-protection over the risk of being seen and left behind. The hardest part about carrying this fear is that it lies to you. It tells you that you are uniquely fragile, that everyone else has figured out how to belong while you are somehow fundamentally flawed. It convinces you that love is a fragile deal where you must constantly earn your place, proving your value over and over again just to retain a seat at the table. But that is not love. That is survival. Living in constant fear of abandonment keeps your nervous system trapped in a perpetual loop of waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the moment the light leaves someone's eyes and they realize they don't want to stay. I want you to know that feeling this way does not mean you are broken. It means you were hurt. It means that somewhere along the line, you learned that closeness was unpredictable, that people who were supposed to stay could disappear, physically or emotionally, without warning. Your vigilance, your scanning, your quiet anxiety, these are not character flaws. They are old survival tools that your heart created to keep you safe when you felt unprotected. But you do not have to live in survival mode forever. The weight you have been carrying was meant to protect you in a moment of danger. But keeping it forever only keeps you from experiencing the deep, restful, unearned love you truly deserve. As we begin to look at this weight together, remember that acknowledging the pain is not a weakness. It is the very first step toward laying it down and finally breathing freely again. That deep, quiet fear of being left behind does not simply appear out of thin air one afternoon. It is not a flaw in your personality, nor is it a random flaw in how you were made. It arrives quietly, built block by block upon small, half-forgotten moments from earlier in our lives. Think back to a moment when you felt left out on a cold school playground, watching a group of children play a game you weren't invited to join. Or remember coming home eager to share something that mattered deeply to you, only to find a parent who was too exhausted, overwhelmed, or emotionally absent after work to hear about your day. Maybe you had a close friend in middle school who suddenly stopped sitting next to you at lunch without any explanation, leaving you to sit alone with your tray and your confusion. In those tender, vulnerable moments, your young mind tried to make sense of the sudden distance. Because a child cannot easily process that an adult is dealing with their own stress, or that another child is simply being cruel, your young heart reached the only conclusion that made sense at the time, that somehow you were the problem. You internalized the distance as a personal failure. You thought, if I were better, smarter, quieter, or more interesting, they would have stayed. If I didn't need so much, they wouldn't have walked away. The human experience naturally preserves these early memories, tucking them away as protective maps to guide us through adulthood. Your brain tries to protect you from ever feeling that raw, agonizing rejection again by keeping you on high alert. Psychiatrist Carl Jung once offered a profound observation about the invisible strings that tie our present to our origins, noting, "The unlived life of the parent is the strongest psychological influence on the child." When we slow down to unpack that reflection, we begin to realize just how much emotional weight we inherit long before we even understand what carrying it means. You might be carrying the unspoken anxieties, the unhealed distance, or the emotional absence of those who raised you. When an adult in your past pulled away, became cold, or shut down because they simply did not know how to regulate their own stress and emotions, you were too young to see their limitations. Instead, you internalized their distance as absolute proof of your own unworthiness. You carried their unhealed wounds into your own heart, believing their inability to love you gently was a reflection of your value. As an adult, those old wounds create phantom alarms. A partner taking a bit longer to walk through the front door, a friend's tired tone on the phone, or a slight shift in someone's mood can instantly send you spiraling back to that playground or that quiet kitchen table. Your heart starts beating fast, not because of what is happening right now in front of you, but because of what happened back then. Your inner child puts on its old armor, preparing for the worst, trying to shield you from being caught off guard ever again. But it is so important to remind yourself, an echo is not the original voice. It is merely a lingering sound bouncing off the walls of a place you no longer live in. The coldness you felt years ago does not belong to your present moment. The person who walked away back then is not the person standing in front of you today. Most importantly, you are no longer that helpless child who had no choice but to absorb someone else's emotional absence. Recognizing these echoes is where the real healing begins. It allows you to pause when the panic rises and say to yourself, "This feeling is old. This fear belongs to my past, not my present." You begin to see that the emotional distance you experienced was never about your worth. It was about the limitations of the people around you. You were always worthy of staying for. You were always enough. By recognizing where the echo comes from, you can finally stop letting the ghosts of your past make the rules for your future. And you can begin step by step to release the heavy history that was never yours to carry. In our day-to-day adult lives, the fear of abandonment rarely announces itself explicitly. It almost never arrives as a clear, conscious thought saying, "I am terrified that everyone will leave me." Instead, it disguises itself as ordinary, everyday behavior. It hides inside our subtle habits, our physical reactions, and the quiet ways we navigate our relationships. It becomes the background noise of our lives, quietly shaping how we respond to the people we care about, without us even realizing it. Consider what happens when a friend takes several hours to reply to a simple message. Instead of assuming they are busy with errands, cooking dinner, or taking a nap, your heart rate quickens. A cold wave of anxiety settles in your stomach. You immediately open the conversation and replay your last interaction in your head, rereading your words over and over to see if your tone sounded wrong, needy, or off-putting. You begin mentally writing apologies for things you didn't even do, searching for the exact moment you might have pushed them away. A simple delay in communication becomes a trial where you are both the accused and the judge, convincing yourself that their silence is proof that they have finally grown tired of you. Or consider how you behave when a minor disagreement arises with your partner or a close friend. The moment you sense even a flicker of tension, your survival instincts kick into high gear. You might find yourself over-explaining your actions, apologizing profusely for having basic feelings, or taking the blame for things you did not do just to keep the peace and lower the emotional temperature. You hurry to fix things before they even break, believing that if conflict is left unresolved for even a moment, it will mean the complete end of the relationship. Alternatively, the fear of abandonment can show up in the exact opposite direction. Instead of clinging, you might build an invisible wall around your heart and pull away first. At the first sign of emotional intimacy, or the moment someone gets a little too close, you start finding reasons to leave. You convince yourself that they aren't right for you, or you pick small arguments to create distance. You tell yourself that if you leave before they do, it won't hurt as much. You protect yourself from the pain of being abandoned by abandoning them first, choosing the safe loneliness of control over the terrifying vulnerability of staying. This fear also shows up when you try to express your own needs. Have you ever felt a deep desire to ask for reassurance, a hug, or a little extra time together, but swallowed your words instead? You stay quiet because a voice inside you whispers that asking for support will make you seem burdensome, high maintenance, or annoying. You convince yourself that needing love is a weakness that will ultimately drive people away. So you pretend to be completely self-sufficient, putting on a brave face while quietly drowning in your own unexpressed longing for closeness. It is so vital to understand that these patterns are not flaws, character defects, or signs that you are broken. They are protective strategies you created long ago when you felt unprotected, unsafe, or unsupported. Your brain learned that unpredictable distance meant pain, so it built these behaviors to give you a sense of control. Over-explaining, people-pleasing, pulling away, and hyper-vigilance are all just your inner self trying desperately to keep you safe from being caught off guard again. When you begin to recognize these subtle behaviors for what they truly are, not as who you are, but as old armor you put on, you can start to treat yourself with deep gentleness. You can notice the racing heart when a text is delayed and whisper to yourself, "I am safe right now." Their silence is just silence, not a verdict on my worth. By bringing these hidden patterns into the light, you take away their power to run your life, opening up the space to step out of constant defense and finally experience genuine, peaceful connection. When we live in constant, subtle anticipation of being left, we naturally begin to hide the most genuine parts of ourselves. The fear of being turned away acts like a quiet filter over our lives, muting our brightest colors and softening our sharpest edges. Without even noticing it, we begin to hide our genuine anger, our true opinions, our spontaneous joy, and our deepest, most basic human needs. We do this because a deep, protective instinct inside us worries that showing these honest parts of who we are will make us burdensome, exhausting, or impossible to love. To protect ourselves from the sharp sting of potential rejection, we construct a carefully curated version of who we think we should be. An agreeable, frictionless version of ourselves. This version never makes heavy demands, rarely says no, always smiles through discomfort, and constantly agrees just to keep the peace. We tell ourselves that if we remain soft, helpful, and completely easygoing, no one will ever have a reason to turn away. But living behind this protective wall creates a painful paradox. The more we hide our real selves to keep others close, the lonelier we feel. Because we realize that people are loving the mask we wear, not the real human being underneath. The fear of rejection creates a heavy shadow, but that shadow can actually become one of our greatest teachers if we learn how to look at it with curiosity instead of fear. Psychiatrist Carl Jung described this deeply human dynamic when he wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When we bring this profound insight into our personal relationships, it completely changes how we view our emotional triggers. Instead of judging ourselves harshly for feeling anxious, threatened, or upset, we can begin to look at our reactions with warmth and gentleness. Consider what happens inside you when someone you love sets a firm boundary or gently asks for a little bit of space. It might instantly irritate, panic, or terrify you. You might feel a sudden rush of resentment or a cold wave of fear washing over your chest. In the past, you might have assumed that your panic meant they were pulling away forever, or that their need for space was proof that you did something wrong. But through Jung's lens, you begin to see that their behavior is simply holding up a mirror to your own internal world. Their boundary triggers you, not because they are doing something cruel, but because it shines a bright light on your own deep difficulty in setting boundaries and taking space for yourself. You might find yourself envying their ability to step away from an intense conversation, to clear their head, take a breath, and gather their thoughts. Meanwhile, you feel an agonizing, frantic urge to fix everything immediately out of fear that any lingering silence will destroy the relationship. You realize that your panic isn't actually about their action. It is about your own old, unhealed wound that equates distance with danger. When you begin to understand the shadow of rejection, a beautiful shift takes place. You realize that another person's need for quiet, space, or personal boundaries is entirely about their own internal process, their own energy, and their own human limits. It is never a harsh verdict on your personal worth. Someone needing a quiet afternoon to themselves does not mean you are unlovable, just as a delayed response does not mean you are being erased. Stepping out of the shadow means giving yourself permission to exist in your full truth. It means understanding that the right people will not run away from your honest feelings, your boundaries, or your genuine needs. You do not have to perform, minimize yourself, or shape-shift to earn a place in someone's heart. By meeting your fear of rejection with understanding rather than shame, you stop hiding in the shadows and step gently into the light of authentic, unshakable connection. To keep people close and shield ourselves from the unbearable terror of being left, many of us develop a very specific coping mechanism. We become the ultimate caretakers, helpers, and fixes in everyone else's lives. You might find yourself constantly organizing social gatherings, offering endless solutions to problems you weren't asked to fix, or anticipating every single need of the people around you before they even have the chance to voice them. You listen attentively for hours, holding space for everyone else's pain, carrying their emotional burdens, as if they were your own. Deep down, a quiet, subtle belief drives all of this effort. You believe that if you make yourself completely indispensable, people will never walk away from you. You try to earn your stay through sheer effort, believing that love is a reward for being useful, necessary, and endlessly giving. But over time, this pattern creates a profound, painful imbalance inside your heart and inside your relationships. You end up pouring all of your vital energy into maintaining the comfort and peace of others, while harboring a quiet, growing resentment, because no one seems to be offering you that same level of deep, intuitive care. You wonder why nobody checks in on you with the same urgency, why nobody notices when your voice falters, or why nobody steps in to take care of you. The truth is heartbreaking. By constantly stepping in to manage everything, you never give others the chance to show up for you. You teach people that you are completely self-sufficient, that you never break down, and that your capacity to give is endless. This endless cycle of over-functioning is not real connection. It is a survival strategy driven by fear. True, lasting connection cannot be built on performance, endless giving, or self-sacrifice. When you constantly overfunction to hold a relationship together, checking every detail, softening every tension, and managing every mood, you are not actually connecting with the other person in a genuine way. You are simply managing your own intense anxiety. You are trying to control the relationship so tightly that there is no room for the unexpected, because to you, the unexpected feels like guaranteed abandonment. Breaking this cycle requires a quiet, brave leap of faith. Healing begins when you finally take a step back and allow relationships to exist in their natural, authentic balance. It means learning to sit with the discomfort of letting someone else handle their own problems, their own bad moods, and their own life choices. It means resisting the frantic urge to leap in and fix every awkward pause, every bad day, or every moment of tension. When you stop holding everything up by yourself, you give the relationship room to breathe, and you finally give the other person the opportunity to step forward and meet you halfway. You have to trust that genuine affection and true love do not require constant effort or sacrifice to be earned. The people who are meant to be in your life do not love you because of what you can do for them, how much stress you can absorb for them, or how easy you make their lives. They love you simply because of who you are when you are just sitting still, doing nothing at all. Stepping back out of overfunctioning might feel terrifying at first, like letting go of the reins on a runaway horse. But as you loosen your grip, you discover something breathtaking. Love that requires you to abandon yourself was never real safety. And the love that stays when you stop performing is the only love that will ever truly heal your heart. To stop living in constant fear of being abandoned by others, we must eventually turn inward and face a painful truth. The deepest, most damaging abandonment is often the one we commit against ourselves. We spent so much of our lives learning how to abandon our own needs, feelings, and truths just to keep the peace with the people around us. Every single time you say yes to a request when your entire soul is screaming, "No," you abandon your inner balance. Every time you swallow your tears, minimize your genuine hurt, or apologize for having a boundary just to make someone else comfortable, you quietly walk away from your own truth. You trade your authenticity for a temporary sense of security, leaving your true self locked in a dark, quiet room while you put on a brave face for the rest of the world. Over time, this inner disconnection creates a profound sense of loneliness that no outside love can ever cure. You become fragmented. You divide yourself into acceptable parts, the happy, helpful, calm, and agreeable traits that you show to others, and forgotten parts, the needy, scared, angry, and grieving parts that you lock away out of sight. You treat those tender, hurting parts of yourself like unwanted guests, scolding them whenever they surface, terrified that if anyone else sees them, they will turn around and leave you. Carl Jung captured the profound, terrifying necessity of bringing these hidden pieces back into the light when he stated, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Accepting oneself completely sounds beautiful in theory, but in practice, it is one of the most challenging things a human heart can do. It means ending the internal war. It means opening the door to that dark room where you banished your fear, your insecurity, and your perceived flaws, and inviting those forgotten parts back to the family table. Taking this perspective into our emotional lives means welcoming back the part of you that feels needy, the part that feels deeply insecure, and the part that gets terrified whenever someone steps away. Instead of scolding yourself for feeling a surge of anxiety when someone walks out of the room or takes a few hours to text back, you pause and turn inward with deep, gentle compassion. You stop telling yourself to get over it or stop being so sensitive. Instead, you put your hand on your own heart and say, "I see how scared you are right now. I know why this hurts, and it is completely okay that you feel this way. I am not going to leave you, and I am not going to shame you for having a human heart." You acknowledge the anxiety without letting it drive your actions. You allow the scary emotions to wash over you like a wave, knowing that a feeling is just an emotional visitor, not a permanent reality. Accepting yourself completely means making an unbreakable promise to your inner world. A promise that no matter who walks away from your life, no matter who fails to understand you, and no matter who chooses to leave, you will never join them in walking away from yourself. When you make your own self-acceptance non-negotiable, the terror of abandonment loses its power. The external world can no longer break you, because you are no longer relying on someone else to hold the pieces of your identity together. You become your own steady home, your own safest harbor, and the one person who will always stay. Healing does not mean that you will magically reach a point where you never feel a pang of insecurity, panic, or fear again. It does not mean that your heart will never ache when someone feels distant, or that you will never again feel a cold splash of anxiety in your stomach. Real healing is far more gentle and realistic than that. It means creating an internal home so steady, warm, and deeply rooted that outside shifts, changing moods, and unexpected departures do not collapse your entire foundation. It is about building emotional anchors within yourself, internal places of safety that hold you grounded, no matter how wildly the weather changes on the outside. Imagine coming home after a long, exhausting day where a meeting at work went poorly. A friend seemed unusually brief with you on the phone, or an interaction felt strangely cold. In the past, your mind would immediately go into a frantic spiral, interpreting those small, unsettling details as absolute proof that everyone dislikes you, that you are burdensome, and that your worst fear is coming true. Your heart would race, and you would spend the entire evening pacing around, mentally searching for ways to fix the silence, or desperately looking for validation to make the painful feeling stop. Building an emotional anchor means choosing a completely different path when those moments arrive. Instead of spiraling upward into terrifying thoughts, you practice sinking downward into your body. You pour yourself a simple glass of cold water, sit quietly in a comfortable chair, feel your feet firmly planted on the floor, and acknowledge the difficult emotion that is sitting with you. You don't try to push it away. You don't judge yourself for feeling it, and you don't run away from it. You simply sit with it, treating your anxiety like a frightened child that needs comfort rather than an enemy that needs to be fought. In that quiet space, you begin to remind yourself of real, grounded facts. A bad hour is not a bad life. A quiet friend is not an abandoning friend, and an uncomfortable interaction does not mean you are unlovable. You speak to yourself in the same gentle, reassuring voice you would use with someone you love deeply. You say, "I hear how scared you are right now, but we are okay. Even if things are uncertain outside, I am right here with you. We are safe." You gradually learn to provide yourself with the deep validation, reassurance, and warmth that you use to frantically seek from external sources. You become the steady, reliable presence in your own life that you always needed others to be. When you build these internal anchors, your sense of self-worth is no longer held hostage by how quickly someone replies to your text, how warm someone acts toward you on a Tuesday morning, or whether someone stays or goes. You realize that you can survive emotional storms because your anchor reaches down deep into the quiet, unshakable ground of your own self-respect and love. External peace comes and goes, but the internal anchor you build within yourself belongs to you forever. As you build a steady foundation within yourself and lay down the quiet weight of survival, the way you connect with the world around you naturally begins to transform. The subtle, desperate energy that used to accompany your interactions slowly softens and fades away. You no longer enter friendships, romantic partnerships, or family relationships looking for someone to save you from your own inner void, or desperately searching for a human shield against your fear of loneliness. Instead, you begin to step into relationships for the purest reason of all, simply to share your presence, your genuine love, and your unique light with another human soul. Think about how different your days feel when you no longer view every relationship through the magnifying glass of potential abandonment. When a friend calls to cancel dinner plans because they had an exhausting day at work and simply need to rest, your heart no longer instantly collapses into a spiral of self-doubt. You no longer take their boundaries or their tiredness as a personal rejection or a subtle sign that they are pulling away from your life forever. Instead of spending the rest of the evening replaying the interaction and feeling wounded, you take a deep breath, offer them genuine grace, and use that open afternoon to take a quiet walk, read a book you love, or simply rest your own body. You begin to communicate your needs, your hurt, and your boundaries clearly and directly, using simple, calm statements instead of resorting to silent resentment, passive-aggressive hints, or sudden emotional outbursts. You no longer expect people to read your mind, nor do you try to read theirs. You realize that healthy, loving relationships can easily handle physical distance, differences of opinion, busy seasons, and quiet moments without crumbling into pieces. Connection stops feeling like a high-stakes performance where one wrong step means total ruin. It becomes a gentle, spacious dance between two whole individuals who choose to walk together. You start attracting people who meet you with the same emotional honesty, respect, and warmth that you are now offering to yourself. And most beautifully, you come to understand that even when people do move on, change, or drift away, as human life sometimes demands, it is not a statement about your inherent worth. You can wish them well and hold love for the path you shared, knowing that the lune, warmth, and peace you carry within your own heart will remain completely intact. There is a profound, quiet shift that occurs deep inside your chest when you realize that the ultimate safeguard against abandonment is not finding someone who promises never to leave. It is your own unwavering commitment to stay with yourself. For so long, you may have lived with your eyes fixed outward, scanning the horizon for reassurance, waiting for someone else to validate your worth, hold your fears, and assure you that you matter. But relying on the outside world to keep you safe is like building a home on shifting sand. True safety begins the moment you bring that focus inward, stand firmly on your own 2 feet, and choose yourself first. Carl Jung reflected deeply on the transformative power of human agency when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This quote serves as a powerful, compassionate reminder of the authority you hold over your own life today. You may have experienced painful loss, unexpected departures, emotional neglect, or broken promises in your past. You may have been left behind when you were too small, too vulnerable, or too young to defend your own heart. But those past experiences, as heavy as they are, do not have to dictate the story of your future. They are chapters in your history, not the author of your destiny. You have the power today to choose a completely different path, a path where you step out of the role of the helpless victim waiting to be chosen, and step into the role of the person who chooses themselves. Choosing yourself first does not mean becoming cold, selfish, or isolated from the world. It does not mean building tall, impassable walls around your heart, or turning away from love, connection, and vulnerability. Rather, it means making your own self-respect, peace of mind, and inner dignity non-negotiable. It means establishing a clear, gentle line within your heart that says, I love you, but I love myself too much to abandon my truth just to keep you comfortable. When you choose yourself, your relationship with fear changes completely. You stop staying in toxic, exhausting, or emotionally barren situations just because you are terrified of being alone. You stop minimizing your values, ignoring red flags, and accepting crumbs of affection out of a desperate fear of empty space. You realize that being alone with your own whole, peaceful self is infinitely better than being lonely in a room with someone who demands that you erase yourself to keep them near. Choosing yourself means knowing down to your very bones that if a relationship ends, if a friend drifts away, or if a partnership comes to an unexpected close, you will grieve deeply. You will feel the sadness, the ache, and the longing. But you will not be destroyed. You will survive it, because your identity, your worth, and your inner home were never built inside someone else's hands. Your foundation rests safely within your own heart. You become the anchor that holds your own life steady, trusting that no matter who comes or goes, you are fully capable of loving yourself through the dark, building a meaningful life, and walking forward with quiet, unbreakable grace. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and no longer carrying that subtle, persistent tightness in your chest. Imagine taking a deep, full breath and feeling your lungs expand completely, free from the quiet, heavy tension that has followed you for as long as you can remember. Consider what it feels like to look at your phone, see no new messages or notifications, and simply move on with your morning, completely at ease and untroubled. Your mind does not spiral into worry. You do not replay your last conversation, and you do not wonder if you did something wrong. You simply enjoy the quiet warmth of your morning, trusting that silence is just silence, not a secret sign of rejection. Living free from the fear of abandonment does not mean that your life becomes devoid of conflict, sadness, or farewells. It means that when a disagreement arises with someone you love deeply, you no longer feel like the world is collapsing beneath your feet. You know with absolute certainty that two people can experience tension, express honest hurt, and need a moment of space without the entire foundation of love falling apart. You stop treating every emotional bump in the road as an emergency. You learn to stay present. Speak your truth with calm gentleness, and listen without putting on your old protective armor. This is the gentle, beautiful reality that quietly awaits you as you practice staying with yourself day after day. As you stop running away from your own internal home, the world around you begins to look softer, brighter, and far less threatening. You begin to walk through your days with lightened shoulders and a relaxed heart, grounded in the deep, unshakable knowledge that you are whole, capable, and resilient. You no longer look at the people you love as lifelines you must desperately cling to. Instead, you see them as precious fellow travelers whom you are blessed to walk alongside for as long as your paths align. You stop living in the waiting room of other people's approval. You no longer spend your energy waiting for someone to prove that they will stay, because you have already made the ultimate, life-changing promise to your own heart. You will never abandon yourself again. When you anchor your worth in your own self-compassion, freedom becomes your natural state of being. You welcome love when it enters your life, enjoying its warmth fully and openly. But you no longer fear the quiet moments when you are alone. You realize that the love you were searching for in every room, in every text message, and in every reassurance was the love you were meant to give to yourself all along. You are home, you are safe, and you are finally free. As we bring this journey to a close, take a slow, gentle breath and let everything we have spoken about settle deep within your heart. Healing from the fear of abandonment is not a single, dramatic moment where everything changes overnight. It is a quiet, continuous practice of choosing yourself over and over again in the small and ordinary moments of your daily life. For so long, you may have lived with your inner eyes turned outward, constantly searching the faces, tones, and gestures of others for permission to feel safe. You carried the heavy burden of believing that your safety depended entirely on keeping everyone else close, happy, and satisfied. But today, a new chapter begins, one where you recognize that the truest, most unbreakable safety is the one you build within your own chest. When the old anxiety rises up again, and it will, because healing is a winding path, not a straight line, remember that you do not need to panic. You do not need to put on your heavy armor, over-explain your actions, or scramble to fix the silence. You can simply pause, place a gentle hand over your heart, and remind your anxious inner self that you are no longer alone. The child inside you, who was once left unprotected or misunderstood, is no longer navigating the world by themselves. They have you now. You are the steady adult who will listen to their fears without judgment, offer them reassurance without conditions, and stay by their side through every emotional storm. You are learning to trust that your worth does not fluctuate based on someone else's availability, mood, or choices. You are whole when you are in a room full of loved ones, and you are just as whole when you are sitting alone in the quiet of your home. The people who are truly meant to walk alongside you will love you for your authentic truth, not for your ability to perform, hold back your feelings, or minimize your presence. As you step forward from this moment back into your life, carry this peace with you. Walk with your shoulders lightened, your breath deep, and your head held high, knowing that you are capable of holding your own heart through whatever comes. You no longer have to wait for someone else to prove that they will stay, because you have already given yourself the one promise that matters most. You will never walk away from yourself again. Before you go, I invite you to make this commitment real and anchor it in your heart today. Pause right here and leave an affirmation in the comments below. I am my own safe harbor, and I choose to stay with myself. Let those words be a reminder to you and a beacon of hope to anyone else reading them today that healing is possible and that you are already on your way. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Take gentle care of yourself, and remember, you are never abandoned.